Restoring Men and History, The Count of Monte Cristo. Great piece of literature and a great book for men and women, and a lot to be found in here. We're looking to take a look at the film with Jim Caviezel and Richard Harris. Really magnificent, well done film. And men can learn from good stories. Men pass on stories. It's what we do. We talk about them in groups. We share stories. And wisdom can be passed down, and you can enlarge your heart from great pieces of literature, books, and really magnificent films like this one. So again, it's the Jim Caviezel version of the Count of Monte Cristo with Richard Harris and Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce. And it's got all of it in there. What do we have today? That the founding fathers knew human nature is consistent. And you can see same human nature in the Count of Monte Cristo, the novel, and the film, and today rings true, because what? Human nature stays the same. People are always trying to find these complex solutions to these problems, but it really goes back to what? What's in this novel? Resolve, risk, courage, it's all in this book for men. Resilience, initiative, great characters, excellent plot. You can watch this film over and over. I can watch it so many times. Read the book. Now, Jim Caviezel plays Edmond Dantes. Guy Pearce plays Fernand, or the Count Mondego, which we will call him both in the film, in the recording. So let's first take a look and just imagine yourself today. Life's going pretty well for you as a boy, a man. You're young, you got your health, you've got a great relationship with your father, which is rare today. That's what Edmond Dantes has right now in the story. So imagine yourself today. You've got everything going for you. You've got a best friend that you grew up with. You've got the love of your life, this beautiful, sexy, feminine woman with a huge heart, and she loves you fully. And you're moving up and doing what you love. In the Napoleonic age, in the age of Napoleon, in France, here's where the story is. You grew up poor, but you've just been promoted to the captain of a boat. By the way, your relationship with the owner of the company is also very good. You have good relationships. You have a good relationship with God. You have a good relationship with your woman. You have a good relationship with your father. And now, since you've been promoted to captain, and in that day and age you would do this, you can marry the love of your life. And she is a very virtuous woman in this film. She's a woman worth gold. You are on purpose. You have skills. You're moving. You have a best friend you've known since childhood. You each give each other a chess piece, a king, when one of you has a win. Kings to you, my friend, they always say. You tell the love of your life the good news. She's excited. Edmond Dantes, our hero, tells Mercedes, his woman, we don't have to wait to get married now, I'm captain. Great news, he's just been told the news. See, they've been waiting and in love. But back then you needed to have money. You needed to be able to provide for your woman, right? Now life's going to be perfect and great, right? So the two of them are outside sitting out. He's just told her, but he has no ring. So he said, once I have enough money, I'll get a ring and we'll get married. You know what this woman says? She says, we don't need a ring. I love you. She grabs a string off a blanket, ties it around her finger, and says, this will be my ring. I'll never take it off. And her eyes show how much she loves him. By the way, his best friend likes her too. And he is just into her. Now that's an excellent woman, true love. She's not worldly. Her love is a true treasure. She doesn't want material possessions. She doesn't care about title. She doesn't care about position. And remember, this is back in the Napoleonic age of France, where it's very difficult to move up in life. Not like today in America, where you men can move up. You men can take action. She's a woman who believes in God. She's his child heart sweetheart. She's sexy, feminine, beautiful. And earlier, right before this scene, he has done a noble act where he took a risk. His captain was sick, and he took him out to an island, and they landed there, taking a risk at Elba, where Napoleon is being held. Napoleon has given him a letter to carry back to a friend. He says it's just a friendly letter. And he trusts Edmond Dantes. People trust Edmond Dantes. He has that look about him, right? Now, when you get back, the chief magistrate calls you to his office to talk to you about the letter. Says you've committed treason. Edmond Dantes explains it to him. And the chief magistrate doesn't believe he's done anything. He knows he's innocent, but he takes a look at the letter and reads it. And then he knows. He's an ambitious civil servant, and he wants to move forward in life. This letter could jeopardize his career. It's all about himself. This bureaucrat, this civil servant, is all about ambition and moving up. He says you're innocent. He burns the letter, getting rid of the evidence. But then he sends Edmond Dantes in a black, terrifying-looking carriage to send him off to prison. Edmond escapes, and he rushes over to his best friend, Count Mondego, Fernand, to get help, because Fernand is a noble. He can help him, right? Well, he finds out that his best friend, and this unfolds, is the one who's turned him in, is the one who has betrayed him. So imagine now your life. You've been betrayed by your best friend. You thought life was up, and they arrest him, get him back in the carriage, and they send him off. So imagine now what you would do. How would you react? How would you handle this? Now, please subscribe and comment if you think that building, forging better, stronger men is important. Thank you. Here's the question of life. How do you react to adversity? How do you react to obstacles? How do you react when things come apart, when your best friend's betrayed you, you've lost your girl, you've lost your world, and everything is caving in? He's being sent to Chateau d'If, which is this terrifying prison. How does your mind work in that? By the way, why does his best friend do it? That's important in this story. Jealousy. He tells him when they're fighting, because they have a sword fight after he takes off and before they arrest him the second time, before they arrest him, because he's fled the carriage on a horse and he's gotten to his best friend's house. He says, because you are the son of a clerk and I'm not supposed to want to be you. So jealousy, human nature, comes into the story early. The other people that betray him are, of course, the chief magistrate wanting to move up in position, and the first mate of the ship that didn't want to go to the island and did not want to take a risk, that the man hasn't demoted, has kept him as first mate, but Edmond Dantes has been elevated above him as captain, and he's jealous of Edmond Dantes. Danglars is his name. So taking a risk is a manly virtue. Of course, jealousy is not. Fernand, Count Mondego, has jealousy. Danglars has jealousy. How will you handle it? Will you give up? When you're put in the prison and they close the doors, imagine yourself in there. Will you fight on and keep going? Or you will quit? Will you quit? He's now in the worst of prisons, Chateau d'If, and set in the middle out of nowhere, in the middle of the seas. You'd have to get on a ship to get there. And your birthday present at this prison every year is to be whipped so that you can keep track of time. He's put in a little stone cell with not much light, isolated, alone, can't see anybody, can't talk to anybody. It's miserable. He looks over and he sees something in the wall, something that someone has written on the rock. And this is classic literature, so they're not afraid to mention God. It says God will have justice. We already know something about Edmond Dantes. Remember, he's risked his life so his captain could have a chance to live. While the captain did die, Edmond we see is a good man at the beginning, full of love and life and faith and hope. Now they're whipping at the start. So they're whipping him at the beginning, the head of the prison. The prison says, and Edmond Dantes says, "Why me, oh God?" Looking up to God. He still believes in God. The prison head says something like, "God has nothing to do with it." Dante says, "God has everything to do with it. He is everywhere." Right now, he is a believer. And he says he sees everything. So you have this unbelieving prison guy and a believing Edmond Dantes. Man says, "Okay, I'll make a deal with you. You ask God for help, and I'll stop the minute he shows up." So he's what? Directly attacking God, mocking him. Now, people do work on Edmond Dantes' behalf. The ship owner really liked him. He had a great relationship. The ship owner and his father and the girl Mercedes, his girl, go with his friend Count Mondego to try to get him out. Of course, Count Mondego's not really helping. He's just trying to appear to be helping so he can get Mercedes, because he wants what Edmond Dantes has: jealousy, envy. The chief magistrate, when they're in the office, adds murder to the charge. Why does he do that? For his own benefit. He wants to move up. He knows that Count Mondego can help him move up. So he says, after the Mercedes and the father and the ship owner leave, he says, Count says, "Why did you do this?" And he says, "I see why you don't like Edmond. I see why you want the girl. She's beautiful. I'll help you. What can I do for you?" So they make a deal to help each other, so he can become the chief prosecutor instead of the chief magistrate. Watch the government bureaucrat looking out for himself, civil servant, right? Instead of looking out for the people he's trying to serve. It's very interesting, right? Chief magistrate should be what? Looking out for Edmond Dantes, looking out for the people he serves. Instead, he's serving himself. We have that today, right? A lot of that going on. So there's a lot in this story. Human nature, again, stays the same. You had it then, you have it now, right? And why is he sending him away? Send him away to get rid of the witness, right? He's burned the piece of paper, so now all he has to do is get rid of the witness. Turns out he has a tie in that letter he doesn't want anybody to know about, a tie to Napoleon, which he doesn't want anybody to know. Now, the chief magistrate keeps going with his wickedness, sends a letter to Mercedes, Edmond's girl, saying that he's now dead. So first he added murder, now he tells her a lie that he's dead. They are really manipulative and wicked. Again, you've got good and evil going on. Now, there's a turning point in the story, which should give all of you hope. And there's a lesson in it about who you need, what you need in life. There's a man who's trying to escape, Richard Harris, Ebbe Faria. And he comes up and digs up. At first, Edmond thinks it's a spirit or something coming out of the ground, because he digs up into his cell. He had been trying to dig out, but he ends up instead digging into Edmond Dantes' cell. Now, Edmond Dantes hasn't talked to anybody for years and years. Imagine that, being in your cell alone, not being able to talk to anybody for years and years. What would that do to you? What would your mindset be? Now, let's see how Ebbe Faria handles it. He's been in prison for 11 years, has never seen light, but he's been digging for 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, imagine you doing something for 5 years, and then you imagine you've dug up just to the cell above you instead of out. He's dug the wrong way for 5 years. How many massive disappointments can you men have before you quit that causes you to stop going on? There's a lot of lessons in here. Ebbe Faria keeps going. And how does he handle it? Does he say, "I've wasted 5 years of my life, oh goodness," and start complaining? No. He's got spirit. In fact, Richard Harris at the time of when the film came out was 72 years old, but he looks 80 in this film, right? And remember this, lifespans were much shorter back then. And in prison conditions, you know they would be much, much shorter even than that. So today versus then, imagine a 72-year-old back then in that time period in a horrible dungeon, prison conditions, still having spirit, still having faith in God, hope, love, He has all of those virtues, the cardinal virtues, in him. And this is a great role model for you men. Ebbe Faria is a great role model. Hope all these pronunciations are correct. Anyway, Ebbe Faria is a great role model for men. Now, also in life, it's perspective of what you see things. How are you going to see this? How does Ebbe Faria see it? He sees it as a blessing. Willpower, resilience, resolve. Ebbe Faria has all of these. Taking risk, initiative, he has it all. Imagine you work on a deal 5 years of your life and then it goes bad and you're sent to prison for it, but it's not even your fault. Just imagine some different scenarios. And then imagine you try to dig out for 5 years and you can't get out. Now, Edmund has counted all the rocks, and the man says to him, have you counted them yet? And Edmund starts crying. He's lost a lot of hope and faith, has no faith in God anymore. Now, this man's been in prison 11 years, like I said. Can you imagine not seeing the sky for 11 years and still being determined to escape and dig out? And here's the question. Do you have that kind of perseverance? Because with perseverance, you can do a lot. Perseverance can make a man. If you can handle great disappointments as men and keep on going and be persistent, you can win victories. Don't complain. Go. You know what he does? After digging 5 years to get to this point, just to dig up to a cell, he thanks God. How many of you would thank God? He has a grateful heart for digging 5 years to here. And remember, he's up in age. How many years does the man have left? Edmund has already given up on God. This man hasn't. Edmund says, there'll be no talk of God in here. He points to the inscription and says, what about the inscription? What does the inscription say, by the way? He says it has faded, just as God has faded from my heart. I think the inscription says, God will have justice. And he says, what has replaced it? And here it is, the story. He says, revenge. Revenge has replaced, God will have justice. And here's the juxtaposition, right? Revenge has replaced, God will have justice. Justice versus vengeance. Ebbe Faria says, follow me, and they go back to his cell. The man is undeterred. If you can have his resilience and energy at 80 years old, that'd be fantastic, because that's what, it would at least be that today, probably 90. He looks old in the film too, and beaten up and disheveled and dirty. So he's been going through quite a bit, but he still has spirit, which shows you can do anything you want at any age. You can keep going. You can have goals. You can have purpose. This man has purpose, by the way. We talk about purpose a lot in Restoring Men in History. Men need a purpose. Ebbe Faria has a purpose. Edmond Dantes does not at the moment. I guess he does. He has revenge as a purpose, but he's not taking action. So with a purpose, you have to also take action. As at this moment, Edmond Dantes isn't taking any action. Ebbe Faria is. And he sees it in an interesting way. The priest, Ebbe Faria, says, perhaps revenge has been keeping you alive for God's purpose for you. So he believes God has a purpose for people. He has a purpose. Comes up. Do you think God has a purpose for you? Do you have a purpose for yourself? We would appreciate it if you would subscribe and help us build better, stronger men.